I'm Marcus Benjamin, and here we are, living in the black. I hope this has been a blessing to you all month, but just in case it's your first time watching us, here is what we do. Go ahead, click the share button on this message. Share it, tweet it, post it, send it to someone in a text message, but I need for you to put in big, bold letters that Living in the Black is on right now. Listen, the entire month we've been talking about money, economics, God's perspective. Now, some people who are out there watching say, man, when is he really going to get into the nuts and bolts of what I need to be doing every single week and month and year? I'm going to talk about that in our last episode. So listen, today I want to talk to you about a young guy. No, it's not me. I know you thought I was talking about me, but no, I want to talk to you about Joseph. Listen, in Genesis chapter 41, listen to what it says. And Pharaoh said unto Joseph, for as much as God has shown unto you all of this, there is no one so wise and insightful as you are. Therefore you shall be over my entire house. According to your word shall all of my people be moved. Only in the throne will I be greater than you. And verse 41 says, and Pharaoh said unto Joseph, see, look, I have set you over all of Egypt. Now, when we look at that, and when we hear that, some of you who are familiar with Joseph's story, you're probably rejoicing right now. But in today's episode, I want to kind of just walk through the life of Joseph for a moment. And I believe you're going to see how this connects to your economics. Joseph was at that time, or not at that time, but before Benjamin was born, his youngest brother, or his younger brother, Joseph was at one point the youngest son of Jacob. But guess what? His brothers, technically who were half brothers, didn't like him very much. They didn't care for him. Joseph talked a whole lot. And Joseph, when he saw them doing things that were underhanded or wrong or trying to get over on his dad, Joseph would go back and tell his father about, those activities. So Joseph didn't have a very good relationship with his older brothers. And in the midst of all of that, Joseph received from his father what we have called the coat of many colors. The Bible says that Jacob spent time and custom made a jacket, a blazer, a garment that Joseph would carry on his body, wrap himself with it, and it distinguished him from all of his brothers, but it distinguished him no matter where he went. Because this coat of many colors would be similar to a bespoke suit today. It would be similar to a finely tailored suit that had the embroidery of nobility upon it. So everywhere this particular person wore this suit, all they had to do was open up their jacket, show the emblem, and everybody knew this guy or this lady is connected to somebody very special. Joseph had that kind of a garment that took years to make, possibly, and it costs a lot of money. Because remember, we're not talking about in today's time where you can just get garments and stitch them together. You're talking about in antiquity where they literally had to work with color dyes and so forth over months of time to develop colors and then blend those colors together in different animal skins and garments and different skins of animals and of sheep with cloth and so forth. You're talking about this could have easily taken 2 to 5 years to make, easily. Remember, Joseph is about 17 years old when he receives this garment. So it's safe to say that they were working on this garment when Joseph was an early teenager, and they presented it to him as a gift for one of his birthdays. Of course, I'm extrapolating that could have happened, but the point is, this was not a cheaply made garment, and this was not a quickly made garment. it was costly, and it took time. So I want to just insert real quick that God's plan for financial management, God's plan for prosperity in your life, He's been planning it for years. He's been planning it for a period of time. But there's a moment in time where He's going to put that coat on you. Oh man, listen, you need to rejoice right there. There's a moment in time where you get to display what it is that God has been working on behind the scenes. And far too many people, they want to be blessed today. They want to have economic strength today. They want to receive or reach millionaire status today. They want to come out of debt today. But guess what? That's not how it works. It's what? Seed time and harvest. It's planting seeds, reaping harvest. It's, little by little. It's over time you accumulate and grow. And so Joseph receives this coat, but his brothers didn't like it. They basically were saying, how come you distinguish him above us? He's the youngest. He's not the oldest. He's not Reuben. He's not the oldest. But Joseph was distinguished. They didn't like him. And you know what happened. Joseph was sent on an errand to find out how things were going with his brothers. He came to the camp. They conspired to murder him, but they didn't. And they ended up dropping him in a hole, a pit, which in most cases was a well that was now dry. You're talking about approximately 12 to 24 feet of a hole that Joseph is in. And he's there crying and weeping. He's there begging his brothers to let him out. And you know what's interesting? His brothers sat down and had dinner while he was in a pit begging for his life. This is Joseph. They took the coat from him. They stripped it from him. And there Joseph was with a small garment of some type in a hole, not knowing what his future was going to be like. And Joseph ultimately was sold to the Egyptians, a man by the name of Potiphar, to be specific. Can you imagine Joseph with his hands wrapped up in rope, with maybe a light garment on his back or maybe nothing on his back, and a small garment wrapped around his waist, walking across the desert where he was once walking with a coat of many colors, showing his distinction and his value. But now he's walking across the desert looking like a slave. Can you imagine what's going on in his mind? Can you imagine the conversations that he's having with himself? Can you imagine no dad, no brothers? Can you imagine no coat, no identity? And he's going to a place, listen to me, where nobody will even know his name. Can you imagine being in that position? Could you imagine being enslaved and once dignified, but now you're without dignity? You're just another slave getting ready to be sold. That's where Joseph was. And as I continue in this next segment, I'm going to take a quick break and come back. I'm going to show you how we're going to build this story and how Joseph's life provides insight for your economic strength. Stay tuned. I'll be right back in just a moment. I'm Marcus Benjamin, the president of the Benjamin Agency. I'm looking forward to seeing you in Greenville on Saturday, December 1st. Why? Because we're bringing together entrepreneurs in an environment of high-level insight and strategy, but all connected to an atmosphere of faith. Do you want to see God's power, His presence, and His principles influence your business outcome and results? Then yes, you need to grab some people from your church who are in entrepreneurship or some of your colleagues who are Christian entrepreneurs and meet me in Greenville Saturday, December 1st. It will be game-changing for your spiritual life, for your business life, and your personal life, to such a degree that we have a money-back guarantee that if you don't believe your time and your investment was worth it, then we will gladly refund your money. We know that this event will be game-changing for you and your business. Meet us in Greenville Saturday, December 1st for the Black to Business Conference. We're getting out of deficits and we are enhancing business results through the principles and power of God. And we're back for living in the black. And we're talking about Joseph. Some of you who may be watching, you may be saying, where's this Joseph character come from? Well, his life is really in the latter part of Genesis, starting in chapter 39. You can go and read all of it, but I'm giving you the broad stroke of the pen. I'm giving you the panoramic view of Joseph's life, and I'm going to tie all of this together in my last segment today. But we're talking about Joseph, who's now in Egypt as a slave. He has his identity taken, his coat of many colors taken, and Joseph is on the auction blocks of history. But here's what's interesting. Joseph didn't get left on the auction block. He didn't get lost on the auction block. He was purchased by a man named Potiphar, and he was brought as a slave. And the scriptures tell us in the book of Psalms that Joseph started off, basically taking care of the menial tasks of Potiphar, just menial stuff. Nothing of value, nothing of significance. But then the scriptures also tell us that Joseph ends up in the field, cultivating the land. He ends up being an overseer over the other slaves. He ended up guiding and directing Potiphar's affairs. And next thing you know, Potiphar's agriculture business begins to grow. All of his interests began to enhance. And everything that Potiphar started off doing, he brought Joseph in to be the overseer of his affairs. So here you have a man who was enslaved, yet he's rising up and he's now overseeing other slaves. He's rising up and he's overseeing Potiphar's affairs. But something as interesting is happening. He's not just given this position because he's, some kind of a good, person. No, he is given this position because he's getting results. He's not just, he's the best slave we got and we can trust him. No, Joseph is getting results. The scriptures say that everything that he touches begins to prosper. The people begin to prosper. His interest, Potiphar's interest, begin to grow. Hold on, what's happening here? Why isn't Joseph being lost to history? Because Joseph is understanding that although my coat is gone, the viability of the idea that my daddy gave is not gone. That the coat represented something that my father believed about me. The coat represents something that my grandfather believed about me. That it wasn't just the coat that made me significant, it was the idea that produced the coat that made me significant. And I want to tell you, ladies and gentlemen, right now, no matter where you are financially, you could have filed bankruptcy, you could have just lost your job, you could have been through a nasty divorce, you could have simply just made some bad financial decisions that have put you in a place of saying, how did I get here? This is not what I saw for my life. This is not what I saw for my future. I am better than this. My future is better than this. I'm supposed to be better than this. But how did I get in this position? I'm telling you that no matter how you got in this position, that there's a coat of many colors that God has wrapped around your life. Ephesians chapter 4, verse 7 says, to every person he has given grace. To every person he has given grace. That means no matter where you are, God says you can start to own your story right at that moment. And he'll provide a strategy for you to come out of your position. He will provide to you insights, ideas, relationships to lift you from that position. That just as Joseph could have been lost on the auction blocks of history, never to be remembered or talked about again, never to see his family and his loved ones again. That was not Joseph's outcome, because Joseph came to an awareness. He came to an understanding that, man, the idea of my daddy is true. That what he promised my grandfather and what he promised my great-grandfather, and what he promised my father, he has promised to me that I will be blessed to be a blessing, that my descendants will be as numerous as the stars under the sky, that those who are for me, he would be for, and those who are against me, he would be against. Joseph began to remember the conversations that his parents and his grandparents started to have over his life, and Joseph started acting not like a slave. He was acting like someone who was dignified. He was acting like someone who had a grace on his life to succeed and prosper. And see, that's what you and I have to do. That no matter what position or condition we are in life, you get your best suit, you get it dry cleaned or whatnot, and you wear that suit and you wear it with dignity and class, and you go on job interviews, you reach out for clients, you reach out for people to see your value and so forth. No matter if you're driving one car, you keep it clean. It could have engine problems. Make sure that you are stewarding it well, because you're not acting like your condition. You're acting as if you have been dignified by the God of heaven. And I'm telling you, no matter where you are in this world, no matter what country you're in, no matter what the destitute conditions are, you could literally be living on $2 a day in another part of this world. But if you will begin to take a sense of dignity, if you will begin to take a sense of being dignified by God, that God has put his grace on you, he's put his anointing on you, he's put his hand upon you, he's shined his light upon you, and you begin to walk like this, talk like this, act like this, teach your children about this, your grandchildren, the people in your community about this. I'm telling you that dignity will begin to open doors for you. That a sense of pride, godly pride in who you are as a human, being made in God's image and in God's likeness, will begin to overtake you, and there'll begin to be an effervescence about your life. There'll begin to be an aroma that's on your life that will begin to create doors of favor for you that other people just won't have, doors of opportunity for you that other people just can't walk in. They'll be saying stuff like, how did you get in here? Or how did that happen for you? It's because you began to walk in a spirit of godly dignity, because that's exactly what Joseph did. And it brought success and accomplishment into his life. It brought a promotion when nobody was getting promoted. It brought Joseph into the close quarters of Potiphar, even to the extent that Joseph was in Potiphar's house alone, meaning that Potiphar fully trusted him. Potiphar trusted that whatever Joseph is managing, it's going to grow, it's going to increase, it's going to be better. Why? Because Joseph didn't see himself as a slave to his conditions. Joseph started seeing himself as being over his conditions, because a spirit of dignity, a spirit of grace will cause you to say, this may be where I am right now. This may be the kind of house that I have to live in right now. I may have to live in this homeless shelter. I may have to live in this hut or whatever, but I am greater than this hut. I am greater than this homeless shelter. I'm greater than having to live with this particular person for a season of time, because God has dignified you. And I'm telling you that Joseph's life will bring power and transformation to your life. I'm going to be right back in just a moment. I'm going to finish off this conversation about Joseph. Stay tuned, don't leave, because you need to hear the conclusion of the matter.
Join the thousands across the country who've been transformed by Marcus's new book, Profiting from God's Presence. It reveals the stories and strategies necessary to erase deficits and bring enhancement to your life. Visit marcusdbenjamin.com/shop to start your journey. Order Profiting from God's Presence today.
Listen, I'm stirred up. I hope you can tell. I'm really stirred up, because I know what this message means. I know what it's like to feel as if you're not dignified by your conditions, or to feel as if you are lesser than other people because of your conditions, or because of decisions that you've made that has just fallen apart. I'm going to give you a quick story before I get back into Joseph. I can remember, this was around 2006. I can remember Omika driving home one day, and she had a very concerned look on her face. And I went outside to the car, and she handed me a printout of our bank account. And the bank account that we had jointly was overdrawn by almost $3,000. Yeah, almost $3,000. And we sat in that car that afternoon. It was a Friday afternoon. The bank had already closed, so there was nothing we could do in terms of having a conversation with the bank. And we prayed in the Spirit, tears coming down our faces, just prayed in the Spirit, tears coming down our face, because really we couldn't say anything to each other, because you know as well as I do, financial tension can produce what? Challenges in a marriage. Challenges in a marriage. So we prayed in the Spirit. And my wife went into the house, and I kept praying in the Spirit. And I remember telling God, you didn't send me back here to fail. You didn't send me back here to be embarrassed. You didn't call me out here to do ministry and to build a business for me to be embarrassed and for me to look bad. No, God, I believe you for recovery and redemption. And so on Monday, when I got a hold of my employer at that time, I was working part-time for a particular company, and asked them what happened to my direct deposit. Well, they made a decision to not direct deposit my last paycheck. And as a result, what I was expecting to come into the bank to take care of all of those end of month expenses were all what? Rejected, because the direct deposit that was supposed to come in didn't come in. And in true secularized fashion, they were unapologetic. They were very curt with me, and that just infuriated me even more. So I had to get back into the Spirit. I realized that's not how I'm going to solve this problem. Moved over to the bank, went to the bank, told them what happened, and so forth. And they understood. They refunded, if I remember correctly, somewhere around $900 of NSF charges. They refunded that. And you know as well as I do, banks aren't generous in refunding NSF charges. They may refund one or two, but they refunded almost $1,000 of NSF charges. That was a blessing, but our account was still overdrawn by right at almost $2,000. And we were praying that week and seeking the face of the Lord about how we were going to get the money to take care of those outstanding obligations. And a phone call came in. A particular company invited me to come in and speak for their company. And they asked me, what's your fee? You tell us what your fee is. And we went, delivered that. It was in another state, executed that. And they wrote me one check. And after they wrote that check, the CEO of that company said, you know what, Marcus, because you did such a great job, I'm authorizing them to write you another check. And they wrote me another check for a few $1,000s. So on one Friday, we were overdrawn by $2,500 plus. By the next Saturday, we had an excess of $2,500 in the bank with that overdraft being paid for. Listen to what I'm saying. All that's dignity. I could have sat in my house and cried over it and wept over it and said, oh God, poor me, poor me. No. At some point, you've got to what? Call the dignity card. Stand up as to who you are as a child of God, created in his image and after his likeness, and expect for God to do something great in your life, no matter how bad the prevailing conditions are. And that's what we find with Joseph. That even when he went to, he was falsely accused of sexual harassment, went to prison. What do we find Joseph doing in prison? Not getting poor me, poor my about my condition. We find him serving. We find him walking in excellence. We find him managing well, to the extent that the keeper of the prison put the whole prison under Joseph's charge. He said, man, you manage this. You handle this. And what happened? The prison began to function better, more efficient, save the king money. Remember those 4 principles? One of them is what? Stewardship. He managed it. And guess what? God arranged the circumstance to get Joseph's wisdom in front of the king. And I'm telling you, if you'll cultivate your wisdom over time, from Joseph being 17 and enslaved to approximately now he's 30 years old when he's standing before Pharaoh, you're talking about what? We're talking about nearly 13 years Joseph's cultivating excellence, cultivating value, cultivating his skill set, cultivating his abilities over a nearly 13-year period of time. Now he's standing before the most powerful person in his country. Like today, you're standing before Warren Buffett or a Bill Gates or an Oprah Winfrey or someone like that. You're standing before someone who has major influence and wealth. Joseph used his wisdom. He used excellence. He used his skill developed over time to bring him out of his condition. So you didn't get into trouble in one day, and you're not going to get out of trouble in one day. You see, what if I hadn't been cultivating my skills and ability with speaking and leadership and executive strategy? That company would have never called me that week. Does that make sense? So you can't wait to develop your skills and your abilities. You have to start now, because if you start sowing the seed today, you get one day closer to your miracle. You get one day closer to a mighty manifestation. But if you delay it, I'm going to start tomorrow. I'm going to start next week. Then guess what you're doing? You're delaying your future manifestation as well. So every week you wait, every week you have a pity party, every week you are poor me, poor my, you are delaying your harvest by a week. You're delaying your manifestation by a week. So you have to start sowing today. Joseph stands before Joseph stands before Pharaoh. And in one day, his whole world changes. One night, he's sleeping in a prison. The next night, he's sleeping in the palace with the most beautiful woman in the kingdom. Does that make sense? But that suddenly happened over 13 years of sowing. That boom, manifestation was a series of small booms that took place over a 13-year period of time. So don't get so consumed by that you have to have a miracle today. No, start sowing, because when you walk in dignity, you realize it may not happen today, but it's going to happen. It may not have shown up today, but it's going to happen. They may have told me no today, but somebody's going to tell me yes tomorrow. Yeah, it's going to happen because you have a sense of dignity that comes not from a government, not from a political party, not from friendships or what neighborhood you live in, but you have a sense of dignity that comes from this reality. I've been created and made in the image of God, and his hand of blessing is on my life. And no matter where I am, no matter what's happening in my life, nothing can strip me of this coat of colors. Nothing can strip me from this coat of dignity. And I'm telling you in the name of Jesus that you are a Joseph or a Josephette, and his hand of grace and power is on your life. Walk with dignity no matter where you are and what's happening in your life, and watch what God shows up. Watch how he shows up in your future. I'm telling you, you're coming out of the red and you will live in the black. I'm Marcus Benjamin. I hope this lesson and this episode was a blessing. I'll be back next week, and I'm going to give you some specific things you need to do to make sure you're walking in the principle of receiving. God bless you. We'll see you next week. I'm Marcus Benjamin, the president of the Benjamin Agency. I'm looking forward to seeing you in Greenville on Saturday, December 1st. Why? Because we're bringing together entrepreneurs in an environment of high-level insight and strategy, but all connected to an atmosphere of faith. Do you want to see God's power, his presence, and his principles influence your business outcome and results? Then yes, you need to grab some people from your church who are in entrepreneurship, or some of your colleagues who are Christian entrepreneurs, and meet me in Greenville Saturday, December 1st. It will be game-changing for your spiritual life, for your business life, and your personal life, to such a degree that we have a money-back guarantee that if you don't believe your time and your investment was worth it, then we will gladly refund your money. We know that this event will be game-changing for you and your business. Meet us in Greenville Saturday, December 1st for the Black to Business Conference. We're getting out of deficits and we are enhancing business results through the principles and the power of God.